Hello, my name is Christopher Silico, and thank you for joining me for my presentation. Originally, I wanted to do some sort of screen recording, but I couldn't figure that out, so instead I'm going to include this video, which I encourage you have the audio playing while you look at my slides, and I will tell you when you should switch slides, so you should start now on the first slide. Now, my presentation is called Bionic Eyes and the Unforeseen Nightmare of Medical Advancement. Next slide. My current event comes from the article that their bionic eyes are now obsolete and unsupported. Second Sight left users of its retinal implants in the dark by Eliza Strickland and Mark Harris. While first and foremost a relevant story in regards to disability rights, it certainly intersects with classism in regards to healthcare accessibility. Now, before I get into the current circumstances surrounding the over 350 blind people who got these bionic implants, let me first provide context on what these implants are and what the title of the article means for their day-to-day lives. Next slide. The company behind these prosthetics, Second Sight, began shortly after CEO Robert Greenberg was participating in a patient test where electrodes were placed into the eye of a blind patient, discovering that they could see spots of light as a result. Greenberg says, "I realized that if a blind person could see 2 spots of light, the rest of it was just engineering." The first functioning bionic eye, the Argus, was created by the early 2000s, and within less than a decade they followed up with the Argus II, being fully approved following clinical trials by the end of 2013. The technology was specifically designed for people afflicted with retinitis pigmentosa, a genetic disease in which the photoreceptors in one's retinas degenerate, resulting in the loss of their vision. Retinitis pigmentosa affects individuals with that genetic code differently, with loss of sight occurring anywhere from childhood to the middle of their life. All patients at one point had vision, and nearly all are guaranteed to have their photoreceptors degenerate until they are legally blind. Now, the Argus implants an array of 60 electrodes into the patient's retinas, 16 in the original model. The implant is connected to a video processing unit worn on the patient's hip, which receives the video coming from the specialized pair of glasses fitted with a camera. The electrodes correspond to the video feeds, stimulating the eye and crudely replicating the function of the photoreceptors of a healthy eye. The Argus's vision is in black and white and is not very detailed. It's described to work best against objects that contrast. Their newest and most advanced implant, the Orion, circumvents the eyes and attaches the electrodes directly into the brain. Beginning clinical trials in 2018, the Orion has been described as the most high-tech and precise neural implant to date. Neural implants seem to be the most promising path to provide bionic vision to a larger number of blind people, as it is not specifically made for those diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. Next slide. Now, Second Sight made clear that they were not yet capable of restoring vision, and the Argus implants provided a limited but useful digital approximation. The technology was the first of its kind, so of course it would be rudimentary. But when offered any chance to reclaim this lost sense, plenty of people were willing to give Second Sight a try. The opportunity to utilize any form of vision proved to be an insurmountable assistance to the daily navigation of many of its recipients, though it is worth noting that some found it difficult to make out even basic shapes and patterns, but others swear by its aid. Jürgen Perk was one such advocate. After he went blind due to retinitis pigmentosa at the age of 19, Jérôme was eager to try the fledgling technology, and in 2013 became the youngest recipient of the Argus at age 16. In the video I've linked on the slide is on Second Sight's YouTube page, where we see Jérôme shoot a bow and arrow. At one point he says, "Anyone who could have this, I want them all to get this system because for me it is so important." After losing their vision, anything that could come close to the sense will of course be beneficial for the quality of life of recipients, as well as enabling them to have more confidence in their mobility. Barbara Campbell received her Argus II during the clinical trials and was an avid user for over 4 years. "The more I used it, its benefits increased," she stated. The ability to make out the crosswalk lines on the street was one huge benefit cited, and Argus II allowed her to see the outside of her building for the first time in years. another huge improvement for her. Though unexpectedly, during a daily commute on the subway in 2013, her Argus 2 system malfunctioned and shut down, rendering her blind again. Due to the implant itself being the source of the problem, rather than any external component, there was no way to restore her system. Faced with the option of undergoing another painful, expensive, and potentially dangerous surgery, or leaving the broken implant in for the remainder of her life, she chose the latter. One person with the Argus 2 estimates the total cost, including the implant, surgery, and rehabilitative therapy, could cost just below $500,000, and patients couldn't know if they would be satisfied with results before undergoing the procedure. Linda Clark, a recipient of the Argus 2 in 2017, regrettably told reporters, "I really wanted to be able to tell them, Second Sight, that this is great, it's a success, and I couldn't do that." Principal investigator for the Argus 2's clinical trials, Aries Aradi, began developing a distaste for Second Sight's business practices, feeling that they were taking advantage of the desperation of their target consumer. He stated, "I found it very disturbing that Second Sight sold so many of these devices to patients who were relying on hope rather than proven performance." And Second Sight promised hope. Terry Byland received the Argus 1 in 2004, and then the Argus 2 in his other eye in 2015, making him the first person in the world with two bionic eyes, and a spokesperson for Second Sight. Byland saw the technology evolve, and when Second Sight promised to roll out software updates that could increase the power of his Argus vision by up to 4 times, provide color vision, facial recognition, and much more, he eagerly was awaiting the future. Though despite being pioneers in their field, Second Sight would soon go in an unexpected direction. On July 18th, next slide. On July 18th, 2019, Second Sight sent a letter to all patients informing them of their plans to phase out the retinal technologies to hone in on the more promising field of brain implants. Despite ensuring patients they would continue to support their implants with access to staff support and supplies, none of the promises would be honored. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Second Sight laid off majority of its staff, sold nearly all physical assets, and then merged with another medical technology company, Nano Precision Medical. The worst part was, no one of the over 350 patients who had received one of their now defunct implants were informed of this shutdown. When Ross Dorr, Argus 2, when Ross Dorr, a user of the Argus 2 since 2019, contacted his Second Sight vision therapist in early 2020, he only then found out that his support system was fired and he would never receive any of the visual upgrades promised. When Doer began experiencing abnormally severe vertigo, he was advised by his physician to receive an MRI. Concerned for Doer's safety due to his Argus implant, they needed guidance from Second Sight before they could proceed, but no one was taking their calls. Jerome Perk, who would use his Argus for 9+ hours a day, the man from the archery video, dropped and broke his video processing unit, then lost functionality in his implant. Resolved to continue to use his Argus, he was thankfully able to acquire an unused unit from a doctor and regain his Argus's ability. While he is disappointed in what happened to the company, Jerome is undoubtedly grateful for his Argus and has no regrets about his decision to get it. This life-changing technology for hundreds is now obsolete and abandoned by their creators, leaving those who wish to continue to reap its benefits that must confront medical uncertainties and the potential of a simple accident or glitch to leave them blind again. Next slide. The fate of Second Sight came as a shock to most everyone in the medical field, doctor and patient alike. Director of Clinical Research at Tufts Medical Center, Andre Witkin, said about the Second Sight's closing, "It's not something that we talked to any of our patients about, because I don't think it's crossed any of our minds. But now this is a reality for the future of medical implants across all fields. Naturally, it's going to take time for a brand new medical technology to improve. But that does not give these companies the right to use the bodies of desperate people and then leave them helpless to manage the augmentations they were sold to make their lives better. Out of the 6 Orion brain implant recipients during clinical trials in 2018, one had since opted to have theirs removed due to the recent developments at Second Sight. Benjamin Spencer is one of the 5 remaining Orion patients, and while he was overjoyed with the opportunity it gave him to see his wife and children for the first time, he now plans to have his implant removed following the end of his clinical trial. He said, "Had I known 3 years ago what I know now, I probably wouldn't have signed up for it." While these patients, of course, were willing to participate or purchase these optical prosthetics, when they lack assurance over their bodily safety, skepticism and doubt will damage the credibility of this field of medicine. Next slide. For decades, we've seen the potential medical implants have for changing the lives of people with a variety of ailments, such as insulin pumps and glucose monitors for diabetics, or pacemakers to regulate people's heartbeats. Despite the complete disregard shown for their patients in recent years, the scientific achievement of Second Sight is undeniable, and it is likely that their contributions to their field will ultimately lead to a future where sight could be restored to the blind. Technology that can vastly change the trajectory of people's lives should not be pumped out and rendered obsolete like the new iPhone. Access to adequate medical care is already made difficult for most people due to its premium cost. So already only a limited few will ever get the chance to acquire the revolutionary technology of the future. And as seen with the Argus patients, their vulnerable position can and will be exploited for profit. I certainly do not want to have a future where we will receive medical implants that will outlive their usefulness and become dangerous burdens residing under our own skin. These technologies must divert their course for being advancements to ensure people that must divert their course for advancement to ensure that people are not used and left to fend for themselves. As we begin to hear about not just medical but commercial brain implants becoming discussed as part of our future, let's try to keep in mind what came from Second Sight. While we seem so close to gaining these advancements, it will take much time and effort before we see the people who these technologies are built for truly benefit from their inclusion in society. Next slide. Thank you for watching. Hope that got you guys thinking. I have a lot more links here from other stuff I read, but 99% of the information, quotes, everything I got was from the Spectrum article. So that's the first link there. I left that linked in the first real slide. Encourage you to check that out. And yeah, thank you for joining me. Have a nice day.